Hi, everybody. It's Miss Monica. I'm back to read another story from Frog and Toad. Today's story is called A Lost Button. Toad and Frog went for a long walk. They walked across a long meadow. They walked in the woods. They walked along a river. At last, they went back home to Toad's house. "Oh, drat," said Toad. "Not only do my feet hurt, but I have lost one of the buttons on my jacket." "Don't worry," said Frog. "We will go back to all the places where we walked. We will soon find your button." They walked back to the large meadow. They began to look for the button in the tall, tall grass. "Here is your button," cried Frog. "That is not my button," said Toad. "That button is black. My button is white." Toad put the black button in his pocket. A sparrow flew down. "Excuse me," said the sparrow. "Did you lose a button?" "I found one." "That is not my button," said Toad. "That button has 2 holes. My button has 4 holes." Toad put the button with 2 holes in his pocket. They went back to the woods, and they looked along all the dark paths. "Here is your button," said Frog. "That is not my button," said Toad. "That button is small. My button is big." Toad put the small button in his pocket. A raccoon came out from behind a tree. "I heard you were looking for a button," he said. "Here is one that I just found." "That is not my button," wailed Toad. "That button is square. My button is round." Toad put the square button in his pocket. Frog and Toad went back to the river. They looked for the button in the mud. "Here is your button," said Frog. "That is not my button," shouted Toad. "That button is thin. My button is thick." Toad put the thin button in his pocket. He was very angry. He was jumping up and down and screaming, "The whole world is covered with buttons, and none of them are mine." Toad ran home and slammed the door. Right there on the floor, he saw his white, 4-holed, big, round, thick button. "Oh," said Toad, "it was here all the time. What a lot of trouble I have made for Frog." Toad took all of the buttons out of his pocket. He took his sewing box down from the shelf. Toad sewed the buttons all over his jacket. The next day, Toad gave his jacket to Frog. Frog thought it was beautiful. He put it on and he jumped up and down with joy. None of the buttons fell off. Toad had sewed them on very, very well. So that's the end of our story for today. Maybe you guys could do some sewing at home today. I love you. See you next time.